Hello and welcome to a new episode of SportsDay Rangers. I'm John Blake.
I'm still Evan Grant.
We didn't have to wait too long to get our answer about Bruce Bochy's future in Texas, as the club announced Monday night that the future Hall of Famer would not be back in 2026. He has been offered a front office position as we tape. A couple of days after that, no decisions have been made.
Bochy, of course, led the Rangers to their first World Series title in 2023. It was a magical run. The last 2 years, the team went 159 and 165, missing the playoffs in both seasons, and finished 2025 with the first non-winning, non-losing season in Rangers history at 81 and 81.
Which is amazing. But this week on the podcast, we're going to look back at the 2025 season, the peaks and the valleys. And also, I think we need to talk a little bit about where Boch ranks among the managers, certainly in team history. And we already know he's one of the greatest of all time.
Our guest this week is going to be former Rangers outfielder Robbie Grossman, who was a key addition in 2023, played in 2024. I think he's got great insights into Bruce Bochy, his strengths as a manager, and what he meant to that team.
And on the archives in Arlington, we're going to look at, you know how I like anniversaries? Today, Friday, October 3rd, couple of postseason anniversaries, and one that I think will really, Ranger fans will remember very well.
Do you remember your anniversary, John?
Yes, I do.
You do?
June 11th.
June 11th. Did you make it to the wedding, or did you have a game to do?
Well, I did make it to the wedding because I hadn't started professional baseball yet. I was working in colleges, which is why we got married in June.
I see.
And the next year, but my groomsmen did not make it to the rehearsal dinner. They went to the Belmont that year, and that was the year Affirmed won the Triple Crown, I believe. So didn't make my mother-in-law very happy, however.
Should we give a plug before we get started to the Mid-Cities Greek Festival this weekend?
That's right. The Mid-Cities Greek Festival begins actually today, and runs through Sunday. And we'll have all kinds of Greek delicacies, Greek dancing. It's the St. John the Baptist Greek Orthodox Church in Euless. And our producer is running the grill, so you'll get that great lamb and chicken and everything if you come by.
One of the highlights of the Greek festival for me is always going to the cashier and being yelled at by John, who performs that role very well. But I understand this year you'll be taking a break from cashiering.
Yeah, it should be on assignment.
To be on a big secret assignment.
But I did do the MC for Taverna night on Thursday night.
All right.
I hopefully did my part.
Very good.
Talk.
In case you're wondering, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be keeping this podcast going during the off season. We're going to probably take a couple weeks off, but the intent is to give you a podcast the first of every month, first Friday of every month, to keep you going with what's going on in the off season and any reactions. And if something breaks out, maybe we'll have an emergency podcast here or there.
And we're both on X. I'm at Ranger Blake. He's at Evan_P_Grant.
Bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. Here comes Jimmy Dale from Baker Brothers Plumbing, AC, and Electrical.
Thanks, Chuck. When your home pitches curveballs, Baker Brothers knocks it out of the park.
Home run, Baker Brothers. Incredible.
As the official home service partner of your Texas Rangers, we're offering $300 off a tank or tankless water heater.
Another winning call. Visit callbakernow.com or dial 214-342-1171 today.
Great service.
And with that, we will start looking at what's transpired the last few days, Evan. And you got the call Monday evening that the Rangers were getting ready to announce that by mutual agreement, Bruce Bochy was not returning after 3 seasons as the team's manager. What was your initial reaction and then what has followed the last couple of days?
Listen, I don't know that I was surprised. I'm disappointed that Bruce Bochy won't be in a dugout as we speak at this point in 2026. I think that Boch is good for baseball, period. I hope he'll be around in some capacity. I enjoyed 3 years of covering him immensely because he has a great sense of humor. He had a great wit, and it was always an enjoyable experience. But with all of that, look, the Rangers hired him on a 3-year contract. They hired twice what were supposed to be managerial successors, Will Venable, who eventually went to the White Sox, and then Skip Schumaker. There was never an extension. Bruce never signed an extension. And so it was entirely possible for me from the day that Bruce Bochy took this job in 2022 that this was intended to be a 3-year process to slowly and incrementally get the Rangers back to being a playoff team. Well, he flipped the script and won a World Series in his first year, and then it was hard to live up to that after that. But I can see where the Rangers are, and we'll talk to Robbie a little bit about this, but with the Rangers going to a what should be a little bit younger team and maybe with a lower payroll, which trends to a younger team, you may want a manager that's more, for lack of a better word, more proactive. I think one of the strengths of Bruce Bochy is he lets the players do their job. He tries to keep a steady hand, but he doesn't try to be too hands-on. And that's his strength with a veteran team. I think with a younger team, you may need somebody who's a little bit more aggressive or whatever the word might be.
And Chris Young, I was a little bit surprised it was done first day after the season, but I think Chris Young had to move with some urgency. And as you look, if Skip Schumaker is certainly a guy that they're incredibly interested in, there are a lot of openings in Major League Baseball: San Francisco, Atlanta, Baltimore, Minnesota, the Angels, and every day there seems like a couple others open. So, and with Schumaker's, certainly his pedigree as a player, a winning player, part of that 2011 St. Louis Cardinal team that broke the Rangers' heart, and then what he did in Florida for 2 years, I think CY really wanted to get this resolved pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think it was important for him to get resolution on this one way or another very quickly, because of the fact that the Giants, Monday morning before noon, San Francisco time, had dismissed Bob Melvin. Minnesota followed very shortly thereafter with Rocco Baldelli. And as we've seen in the last 48 or midweek, the Braves announced that Brian Snitker would move into a different role, and that the Angels announced that Ron Washington, our good friend and one of the other best managers in Rangers history, would not return to their dugout. And so all of those jobs would be in some way, in some form or fashion, attractive for a guy like Skip Schumaker. I mean, he is probably going to be the number one hot commodity going into the offseason. And that's why the Rangers had employed him, go after the 24 season, was give him some exposure to this group, put him in a position where, he would be familiar if he moved into the successor role, and most importantly, give the team first dibs at securing him. So I think it's also important for the Rangers now to make sure that gets locked up. And I think that with the number of moves that we've had early in this week, it puts Skip in a position of leverage, a position that a manager probably hasn't had with the Rangers in quite some time.
And certainly a lot of different options. So if Skip Schumaker seems to be, and Chris Young acknowledged he is certainly a candidate for the job in his media Zoom on Monday night. Who else could be a possible candidate that the Rangers could look at?
Well, I mean, I think that you look at trees or pods or whatever you want to call it, different groups, right? I think when in my column trying to come up with a list, I looked at obviously Skip. After him, I look at the relationships that Chris Young has built up in the game. That's partly why Will Venable was here. Relationships are a huge part of hiring, and I think the manager-GM relationship is the most important in any organization. So with that, I look at his former catcher, Nick Hundley in San Diego, who's currently a senior advisor here. I think that would be some possibility if Nick is willing to take time away from his young family, as a lot of players struggle to do after their careers. That would be a possibility. Luis Ureta, the bench coach this past year, who was on Skip Schumaker's staff in Miami impressed the Rangers pretty significantly, I think, in this first year. So I think he would be a candidate. I don't put a whole lot of stock into the former Ranger legend circle because I think we've all been down this road with Michael Young and to some extent with Ian Kinsler. Again, both those guys have families. They are exceptionally devoted to making up for lost time when they weren't around those families. And I think that while they're both very active in senior advisory roles, I don't think they envision themselves going into the dugout at this point in time and taking on a full-time job. If you want to talk about former Ranger players who might be a candidate, Bobby Wilson was on staff. I think Bobby is going to manage in the big leagues at some point in time. I know he has managerial aspirations. He was a Ranger in 15 and 16 and has been on the staff since 2021, I believe, right?
And ironically, he was supposed to manage in the minor leagues.
Going
that
into
was
COVID.
going to be his
yeah.
first job coming off the field in 2020, and it just – he impressed them at the alternate side and ended up on the big league staff. But that was his aspiration.
And the other guy, I know he has managerial aspirations, and I told him when he was a player, I think he's going to be a great manager, is Robinson Chirinos, who was the bench coach for the Orioles this past year and still lives, I think Robbie lives in Rockwall, or I think that's where his teaching facility is. So those are the guys that I look at. I don't think that this group of managers that was let go in the last couple of days, particularly Bob Melvin, I don't think that fits with where the Rangers are going, because if you look at Melvin, in a lot of ways, he's very similar in profile to Bruce Bochy. He's 64, managed most of the same teams that Bochy managed, and I think if the Rangers are going to get younger and a little bit less veteran, I think you're going to be looking more for younger type managers.
Well, we'll see what happens, but let's talk quickly about where Boch ranks in Ranger annals in terms of all-time great. Now, he was only here 3 years, won the championship, but if you try to rank him up, I mean, Ron Washington was here a long time, took the club to 3 postseasons, first 2 World Series, all-time leader in team wins, and then Johnny Oates came in, to a franchise that was certainly stuck in neutral and went to 3 postseasons. Does Boch's his one accomplishment kind of outweigh what Johnny and Wash accomplished here, do you think?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the greatest managers in Rangers history, right? Guys who managed the team or guys who were managers who at some point in time managed the Rangers, because then you have to include Billy Martin and Whitey Herzog, and
it's an incredible list of guys that really have been here.
But I think the great thing about the Ron Washington, Johnny Oates, Bruce Bochy,
so Bobby Valentine in there
Bobby
too.
Valentine as well.
He set the right.
I think the great thing about the Bruce Bochy, Ron Washington, Johnny Oates trio is this. Each one of them accomplished a first for the Rangers. Johnny took this team to the playoffs for the first time, and that was a 25-year process. Ron took this team to the World Series for the first time, won the first playoff series in Rangers history. And Boch did what eluded Wash, won a World Series. So I think all of those kind of cancel each other out. I think if you took any one of those managers and gave them a good roster in Rangers history, they'd get you pretty deep into October. So I think it's a great trio to really have at the top of the Rangers managerial hierarchy.
And as someone who's been here a long time, the pitching and defense this year, if we had that pitching in a lot of these years, I think the Rangers would have had multiple flags. And I know it's not apples to apples, but the fact you can lead the major leagues with the lowest ERA and the highest fielding percentage, the last team to do those 2 things and not make the postseason was the 49 Cleveland Indians, 1949, year after they won their last World Series. And I know it's not, but it's just astounding, Evan, that you had those 2 things working for the Rangers this year, and you just could not find a way to win, 6 more games to get in the playoffs?
It just
7 more games.
It just comes back to where this offense was, and that this offense underachieved. And I think that is, going to be Chris Young and the new managers number one focus in the offseason is figuring out how to get this offense to be to optimize itself. There are some things that need to be addressed. There's some personnel decisions that need to be addressed. There's some process decisions that need to be addressed. But this Rangers club was just badly underachieved offensively. There's nothing else. No other way to describe it.
Oh, we'll see what happens. Last thing before we talk to Robbie is I wanted to let's go over the three major team awards. I'm not, you good guy. I don't, that's a writer's
that
vote.
award lost all validity when you won it.
Correct. So let's just move on. Ranger Player of the Year. Who would your Ranger Player of the Year be?
I think this is a really interesting year because I'm not sure I'd give it to a position player. I might give it to a pitcher.
We got to do player, pitcher, and rookie. So
I know, and
you're on the spot here.
And traditionally, Ranger Player of the Year has gone to a position player. This year, with the number of games that Corey Seager missed, the most obvious choice would be Wyatt Langford. But I would not be opposed to giving it to Jacob deGrom coming off of the year that he had.
Well, Seager, for me, his WAR was still over 6. His numbers for 105 games were still pretty good. I think I would give it to Seager over Langford just because of what he accomplished. He had a higher WAR than Wyatt. He had a higher OPS. Yeah, he was only on the field for 450 at bats, but boy, I don't know. It's hard not to look at Corey for that.
And look, the one thing I've thought of when I look at the team awards this year is it feels to me impossible for the Ranger awards, however they're divided up, to not in some way recognize both Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi.
Oh, you've got the Dirt Award, which talks about, let's move on to pitcher. deGrom or Eovaldi for you? If it was me, I think I would probably have voted for deGrom just because of the starts, the innings, the strikeouts. But again, you look at the WAR, and WAR is now the thing people like to look at. Nate's WAR was 4.2 and Jacob's was 2.9.
Yeah,
I'm saying to myself, how can that? But
and again, that's why I'm strategically awarding these votes, right? I could award Player of the Year to one and Pitcher of the Year to the other.
I see. Okay.
But and it wouldn't surprise me if this for the first time ever ends up with Ranger Pitcher of the Year being a split vote between Nathan Eovaldi and Jacob deGrom. Nathan's numbers were historic. And it's unfortunate that he missed the end of the season.
Right.
Jacob's comeback should earn him Major League Comeback Player of the Year.
That's the one national award hopefully the Rangers have got a shot at, because I agree with you 100%.
But both of those guys, I feel like both of those guys need to be recognized in some way for their seasons.
And then the last one, I think we'd agree on this, is probably Jack Leiter is the team's Rookie of the Year. Made so much progress watching him pitch toward the end. You take a lot of things, good and bad, out of this season. I think Jack Leiter's progress, his poise on the mound, being able to kind of harness that stuff, he was fun to watch.
I've said this over and over to people that the biggest singular positive to come out of this season was the growth of Jack Leiter. There were doubts about him going into spring training. I had doubts about him myself. He answered all of those. And when you go back and look at Jack Leiter film from 2024, you saw what amounted to be a big ball of sweat on the mound. He was sweating. He was nervous. There was a whole lot of energy.
Body language was unbelievably bad.
And this year, he slowed the game down. This is a guy, again, there are circumstances and environments that allow for growth. I believe that Nathan Eovaldi was the perfect teammate for Jack Leiter because of how invested Nathan is in giving information, and I believe Jack was the perfect pupil for Nathan Eovaldi because of that. And I think that really accelerated his growth. I think that really accelerated the growth of Jacob Latz as well. But Jacob didn't qualify as a rookie. So Jack is, without a doubt for me, the rookie of the year. I do want to at least mention that, look, Cole Winn grew a lot and has put himself in a position to be a high leverage reliever going forward for this team. So he deserves a hand for what he did.
And since Evan is the chapter chairman, he is the one that counts the votes. So for these awards, so it'll be very interesting when the announcement is made here later in the fall. So let's move on. Our guest this week on the podcast is Robbie Grossman. Played 12 years in the major leagues, was a member of that 2023 World Series championship team, then came back in 24 for about 3 months. And we do want to talk to him about the impact of Bruce Bochy on that team, and we'll talk to Robbie coming up next. Well, our guest today on SportsDay Rangers is a familiar face to Ranger fans from a couple of years ago, Robbie Grossman. He was a member of the 2023 World Champions and played in 115 games that year, a very valuable player for the club in the outfield, 10 homers, 49 RBIs, came back, played 46 games the next year. We also played with the White Sox and the Royals to end his 12-year Major League career. That's also included stops with the Astros, Twins, A's, Tigers, and Braves. So, Robbie, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's good to see your two faces again. It's been a little bit.
So before we talk a little bit about 23, you did not play at all this year. Finished up with the Royals last year. Were a free agent at the end of the season. What you're not officially retired, but what is life like without professional baseball?
Yes, I'm going to announce that I am retired. I spent a lot of time with my family, my wife, my two little dogs, and enjoying some of the things I haven't been able to do over the last 12 years, and just catching up on that time that being gone for all those years playing baseball and doing what I loved, and my family sacrificed and my wife sacrificed, and being home, being present, and it's been nice. It's been a long summer without baseball, but I've appreciated things I haven't gotten to do.
Any thoughts about down the road, coaching, whatever? Or are you still trying to kind of figure that out and just spend some really good quality family time?
I told my wife, I said, I need a year off. And we're getting to the end, and seeing postseason baseball on the TV is really, I told her last night, I said, this really makes me miss baseball. And I want to get back into baseball at some capacity. I don't know when or where or how, but that's something that I'm going to be looking forward to being a part of in the near future.
What's it like being a newlywed out of baseball, Robbie? I mean, look, you got married right after 23? Well, 23 was a big year for you.
Mm-hmm. It was a big year. I will say, not having baseball, being unemployed, my honey-do list has gotten a lot longer in these days at home. So that's one thing that I'm adjusting to and been working on.
What did you find yourself, even though the year was good to kind of take some time away, what did you find yourself missing the most?
I miss the guys. I miss the competitiveness. I miss the clubhouse and the everyday grind of it. I think baseball is unique in the sport of that it's every single day, and I miss that dearly. But just finding other ways to challenge myself every day is the tough part.
You were one of the guys that I would often turn to for some insight in the clubhouse in 2023. That was your only year, well, 24 when you came back. That's the only time you had spent around Bruce Bochy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did Bochy mean to you as a manager? Because you played under a lot of guys. I'm just curious as to what kind of effect he had on that 2023 group.
Look, I've played for incredible managers throughout my career. I was very, very blessed to, and Bochy was another one. The way he could lead a group of grown men and say things when they needed to be said at the right time is a very hard thing for any manager leader to navigate. And he was one of the best I've ever been around. And it wasn't just to say something. It was always the right time, right place when we needed it. And he had a very good feel for that of how to put his hand on like the temperature gauge and be like, all right, this is my time to come in here and say something. But I mean, his record, his career speaks for itself. This wasn't the first stop he's done this, and I was just lucky enough to be a part of a clubhouse that he got to lead.
How would you describe his sense of humor?
Boch is a unique individual, and it's great sense of humor. I don't really know how to describe it, but like he would always have something to say, or he would always interject how he does his uniquely way, and it was always fun to be around him.
Well, people remember, Robbie, that the Rangers won in 23, but it wasn't all roses that season. There were a lot of ups and downs. Club got off to a great start, then stumbled once, then stumbled again down the stretch before running off that amazing postseason. As players, how did you get through it, and how did Boch kind of help you guys work through that?
I think the more like we went back and said, like I was saying, like the challenge of every day of playing in the major leagues is something in itself, and the struggles that we had that season, or any season that you have, make the season, because it's how you come out of the struggle. And Boch was the perfect person to lead that veteran clubhouse, a group of guys. And we've all been there, but sometimes it takes the leader, as Boch did, to come in and push us in the right direction a couple of times. But as we sit here today, we're talking about how great that season was, winning our first World Series. We had our struggles, and now we're talking about the struggles because that was what the team was made of, that we were able to get through those things, and we ended up winning the World Series.
You know, that is one thing about Bruce Bochy that stands out from a media perspective is you guys, he could throw his cap or really get upset after a game when the bullpen blew a lead or when there was a mistake made. The next day he comes back and it's like nothing had ever happened. And it's to me, it was the illustration of what every manager always talks about. You got to have an even keel. Yeah, you got to have an even keel, but it's not like you got to maintain the same thing every moment. You have your highs, you have your lows, but at the end of every day, you reset. And I'm guessing that you guys could feel that as well, that nothing ever lingered.
100%. And that's a test of a true leader, is show up every day, same attitude. And coming from his position as a player, I knew I was going to get the same thing out of him every single day. And that's all I can ask for as a player. And the respect of someone that can show up to their workplace and have the same attitude every day. I mean, it just makes everyone's job easier.
And at the same point, you've mentioned a couple times, right? That was a veteran team, and he was a great manager for a veteran team. There is a difference on how you've got to manage a veteran team versus how you've got to manage a team full of young guys. What's the difference?
Look, I've been lucky enough to play for a lot of managers, a lot of bad teams, a lot of good teams, and it's a tough business breaking into the major league, especially when you have young guys around you. And learning to play at that level, because it is different than the minor leagues in terms of strategy and how guys go about it and how guys orchestrate, how they prepare to get ready for a game. But when you have a group of older guys that have been through the ups and downs, and then you have a leader who is just real even keel all the time, it kind of just sets the temperature in the room every day as you walk in. You're like, all right, new day, new challenge. Let's go.
You also had, now getting to the postseason that year, Rangers had some veterans, but they also had a lot of young guys that had never done it before. Nate Lowe and Jonah Heim and Josh Young and certainly Evan Carter. And you had been to some postseason. You had some postseason experience. How did that group kind of come together? Obviously, certainly in the first two rounds, it was a lot of pressure. The Rangers reeled off 7 straight wins to open the playoffs. But how did the team kind of, help those young guys? As you watch now, all these teams in the playoffs this year with all these young players, how did the veterans and the young guys kind of help them get through all of that?
Well, look, as a young player playing in the playoffs, you lean on your older players. You lean on the guys that have been there. And like a guy like Boch, who was the same guy as the whole season, he never changed. You lean on that. And you come to the field, you have all this anxiety, like, hey, we're playing the postseason, but everyone's acting the same. That rubs off on everyone, and that just gives you the confidence, like, okay, we're playing the same game, everything's the same. Let's just go out there and do what we know what to do.
You know, I made the point to somebody the other day, we were talking, and it might have been while we were in Cleveland because Austin Hedges was there. And I made the point to somebody as we've talked about the Rangers clubhouse the last 2 years, and that it's been, it's lacked a little bit of personality. And I think the way I phrased it was, this team acquired Max Scherzer and it acquired Jordan Montgomery at the deadline, and both those guys, you know, were significant high profile acquisitions. But I thought that Hedges' place in the clubhouse was a really valuable role in that he got a lot of guys to loosen up, and it seemed like you guys had more fun in August and September than you did for most of the year. Am I misreading that?
Well, it speaks for itself. You can see, Hedgie is doing the same thing in Cleveland, and he's the front and center of their celebration picture. Like, it is. There's unique characters in this game if you get to play long enough, and you get to be around teammates that are so unique and such great people that they just make everyone else a better person, happier person, and they just include how they just go about their business. And Hedgie's one of those unique guys, and his career speaks for itself. And at someday, I wouldn't surprise me to see him managing a team, because the way he goes about things, it just everyone kind of just falls in line, and everyone can just like take a deep breath. And he's one of those unique guys, and I was just lucky enough to play with him.
And you know, the thing on Austin too for me is, like, not only is he comfortable being class clown a lot of the time, but, and we saw this past weekend in Cleveland, he's out taking early BP. He's the one guy out taking early BP. He takes his work seriously. He doesn't take himself seriously. And I think that's what you need in that guy that kind of loosens up the clubhouse.
Well, look, he's a pro's pro, and he's comfortable in his own skin, right? And that is a maturity thing that is really hard for some people to get to, but he is accepted it. He is who he is, and he's a great human being, and I wish nothing but the best for him.
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, on the spot about 24. When you came back, you spent about 3.5 months with the team last year, from May to the end of August. You know, they talked about the World Series hangover. Did you notice a difference at that? Was it a different feeling with that ball club when you came back, and anything like that?
No, I just, baseball is really hard, especially when you set the bar so high that the next year anything less is going to be a disappointment, right? So, and so many things have to go your way to get to where we were in 23. I can look back on times where, like, oh man, I don't know how we're ever get out of this, and then a week later we're on top of the mountain. So that's the unique thing about baseball, that it is such a tough game, and it's every single day, and it takes so many things to go right to have it go your way at the end of the year.
Robbie, have you been to Pinkerton lately?
No, I haven't. We moved out to Tomball, closer to where I grew up. And there's a barbecue place out here called Tejas Barbecue. I'm going to throw that plug in. That it is incredible too.
I will just say this. The non sequitur here is that I give Robbie credit for giving me the best restaurant tip of any player of all time. And as John knows, I'm a big connoisseur of restaurants, but I love the Pinkerton barbecue in Houston. It's really good. I know everybody talks about truth this and truth that, but that jambalaya with duck sausage there is maybe one of the best side dishes I've ever had, and their ribs are outstanding. Tell us about Tejas a little bit.
They have a brisket blue cheese sandwich there that is just, I'm not even a big blue cheese guy. I've grown to like it more the older I get, but it is just out of this world. And they make their own chocolate there too as well. So it's tough to beat. It would be a spot for you.
Well, on the way down next year, I'll have to stop in Tomball for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably 45, 50 minutes outside of town north. But yeah, come out to Tomball. Come check us out.
So, Robbie, before we let you go, when you said you want to get back in baseball, where do you feel like your strength would lead? Do you want to be in a front office role, or do you want to be on field?
Look, baseball has given me such an amazing life, and I owe a lot to baseball, and I feel like I have too much information not to share it, and that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm gonna explore some opportunities and see what comes about, and hope for the best, and hopefully I'll be able to impact an organization or a high school or even an amateur team. I feel like baseball has afforded me so much, and it's given me so much, and I know I have so much information to give that it would be selfish if I just kept it to myself.
That special assistant role, that's a sweet gig, man.
I know, but they just don't hand those out. But I would love to do something.
Oh, we'd love to see you come into the ballpark every once in a while and just toss some opinions out. That would be great.
I would love that. And like I said, I love this game since a kid, and it's been a little bit weird not playing this year, but it's also been nice to finally spend some time with my parents, my wife, my brother and sister, and I just haven't seen them over the last 16 years through the summer, and it's been a unique challenge being home.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Robbie, we appreciate the time. The Rangers obviously had a lot of question marks going forward for 2026, but we wanted to kind of look back at that 23 season and the Hall of Fame manager that led that team to this franchise's first championship. So good luck. We hope we'll see you back on the field or in the game, and we appreciate the time today. Well, thanks for Robbie Grossman for joining us this week, Evan. He was a real stand-up guy in the clubhouse, a pleasure to be around, and just one of those good guys that was on that 23 team that made that team what it was.
Yeah, real professional. I mean, that was a team full of professionals, and that was one thing I really came to respect about Robbie was he knew his role, he performed his role really well, and he had a lot of great insight about that club.
And now on our final, I guess this would be regular season, end of regular season segment. I hope you've enjoyed these Archives in Arlington vignettes this year. I've tried to go all over the map, but I thought with the postseason now in full strength, I would look at today, which is October 3rd when this podcast drops, in Rangers history for postseason games. And the Rangers have only played twice on October 3rd. The first being in 2011. It was Game 3 of the American League Division Series at Tampa Bay. Series was tied 1-1 at that point. They'd split 2 games in Arlington. If y'all remember, the fans remember, that was Matt Moore's coming out in Game 1, which was unbelievable. But the Rangers won that Game 3, 4-3, behind the old reliable Kobe Lewis. Gave up 1 hit, 1 run in 6 innings. 5 relievers finishing the game with Neftali Feliz getting a save. Texas was down 1-0. They scored all 4 runs in the 7th inning. Couple of postseason heroes that year, a 2-run homer from Mike Napoli, and then a 2-run single by Josh Hamilton. And most people won't remember Desmond Jennings hit 2 home runs for the Rays that game as Texas beat David Price. Rangers would go on to win the next day to win that series 3-1. And then, folks, 2 years ago today, the Texas Rangers started that amazing 2023 postseason run with Game 1 of the American League Wild Card, again at Tropicana Field. And they shut out the Rays 4-0 behind 7 shutout innings for Jordan Montgomery. The Ranger runs, just to refresh your memory, a sacrifice fly by Josh Young in the 2nd, a wild pitch in the 5th, and then a 2-run single by who else? Corey Seager in the 6th. And Evan Carter, in his postseason debut, 2 doubles, 2 walks. And coming off that long flight from Seattle, the disappointment at the end of the season, it was the Rays were really good that year. And it just kind of was the catalyst to kind of set that run in motion.
You know, one thing that the one thing that sticks out for me about that game, and I forget what exactly the circumstance was, but it was Jordan Montgomery springing off the mound, make that diving catch on was it a popped up bunt or just a pop up? But he did that along the foul line, and there was it was a great play, and it let me know that like this team was all in, right? This
Jordan
team,
Montgomery was not a small guy for him to get off the mound that way. To do that, but it was an amazing play, and it really energized the team, I think.
I think I joked in the press box that I felt the reverberations from that after he landed.
So the rest is history. The Rangers win the next day to take that series, go to Baltimore, win the first 2 games there, win their first 7 postseason games, and it seems like just yesterday that the 2023 Rangers were World Series champions. And here we are 2 years later, looking at a new manager, probably looking at a lot of personnel changes for next year. But, you know, as Ron Washington would say, that's the way baseball go, and we'll see what happens.
You know, when Atlanta announced that Brian Snitker would move into an advisory role on Wednesday, I went back and I looked, and the managers of the 21, 22, and 23 World Series champions are no longer in the dugouts with their respective teams. So baseball comes at you fast, right? I mean, Dusty won with the Astros in 21, Snit with the Braves in 22, Bruce Bochy in 23, and it is, as we're sitting here in early October 2025, it does feel like just yesterday, but it also feels in baseball days like a really long time ago.
Well, I'm sorry, this will be the end of the weekly podcasts, and I hope you guys enjoy the postseason. I mean, I love postseason baseball. I'm really sorry the Rangers didn't make it. It was disappointing, but enjoy the postseason, and we thank you all year for joining us here on Sports Day Rangers.
But we will be back during the postseason. As I mentioned earlier, the intent is that we will have pretty much monthly podcasts. There may be a situation where we have an emergency podcast. I know John's already working on some good high-profile guests that we will continue to have. And so you can continue to find this podcast here, the Sports Day Insider podcast with Kevin Sherrington and I, and usually a staffer. Will continue to drop in this feed every week. There will be periodic Ranger content in there, but right now, obviously, the Cowboys, the colleges, and soon the Mavericks and Stars will start up, will be available. But we enjoy doing this. We hope to do it again next year. We hope to take everything we learned this year and continue to grow and maybe not strangle one another. But for me, it's been a great experience. Thanks to John for wrangling so many great guests, and we'll continue to bring those guests as the offseason transpires.
Thanks to our producer, too, who's done a good job all year at keeping us on track. And
you want to mention the producer?
Chris Blake, the producer, has done a really good job all year. And like I said, I don't know if I could have done this podcast with Evan 5 years ago, folks. I mean, I don't know if I could have controlled my composure on the air, but as I've gotten older and I've kind of mellowed into this new kind of life, I've really enjoyed doing this. So thanks, Evan, for working with me this year.
And I really want to just mention before we leave that while Chris Blake shares a last name with John and some genes, he's definitely not a Nepo baby. Chris makes the podcast go. John, we kind of put up with John, but Chris is the real force behind this podcast.
Well, I'm just glad I've learned to use earphones and this lovely light, and I've really enjoyed it. So enjoy the playoffs, everybody, and we'll talk to you all soon.